Hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Tay, and today we're talking about Stranger Things because it's literally over. I really enjoyed watching the final season, and I think it's largely nostalgia bias and just how long the show's been going. It feels like we grew up with it. So with that being said, there are a lot of issues with this last season. I'm mostly going to talk about the finale because if I go through each episode, we'll be here all day. I'm gonna speed run through my general thoughts about each character this season. I think that'll be fastest, and then I'll talk about the finale because I can do whatever I want. So, people who are kind of irrelevant: Murray and Mr. Clark. I appreciate their presence. I just don't have much to say about them. Erica is an amazing character, and her actress, I hope to see her in more things. I do think she got an appropriate amount of screen time, even though I wish we got to see more of her, and I feel the same way about Miss Wheeler. I think she got a fair amount of screen time as well, but I'm glad they gave her some iconic moments, like when she blew up the Demodogs. That whole scene was kind of a mess. Didn't really make sense, the way the Demodogs, stopped. They were, going Mach 5 through the hospital, but then when they finally get to the people, they just, they're just moving at a snail's pace anyways. I digress. So I would have liked to see more of Erica and Miss Wheeler, but given the amount of characters the writers had to juggle, I think they were done justice. People who were not done justice, Joyce and Mike, they had almost no presence this season. They didn't really have any standout moments. Well, Joyce got to cut Vecna's head off, and that was a great scene. But other than that, I feel like they did nothing. And I don't understand how that happened, but I might even add Lucas to this list because he didn't really have much of a character arc. It was just him trying to get Max back, and that was a beautiful moment when she did come back. But people have been saying Lucas has kind of just become Max's boyfriend. That is kind of his whole character, and I'm like, you're not wrong. Speaking of Max, I'm glad we got to see more of her, but I have mixed feelings because I think it would have been better if she just woke up early on and was with the rest of the gang the whole season, and I know that would require rewriting the entire season. If I'm being completely honest, the whole Dreamworld Camazotz situation was so unnecessary, and it just took screen time away from the main cast and gave it to these kids who we don't really care about. They could have just had Vecna take the kids, and then everyone works to get the kids back. And if they wanted to show how Henry got his powers, because that happens in the dream world, they could have just done it while 11 was in Henry's mind or something. I just feel like devoting so much screen time to the dream world was a bad choice overall, but, there's nothing we can do about that now. So anyways, where was I? Robin. I really, really loved her in past seasons, but her character got a bit stale for me. Her shtick of being the rambly, awkward girl kind of just got boring. I did enjoy her scene with Will. I thought that was very beautiful, and it didn't feel too forced. I still liked her this season. I would say I liked her less. So I'm not here to hate. I just liked her a little less. And I guess I should mention Vicky. Did we even need her? We're adding to an already bloated cast and then doing nothing with her character. She didn't really need to be here. Will is a weird one because I went in not really caring about his character. I guess my thoughts are glad this happened for you, but I don't really care that much. The coming out scene has been talked to death. There were simply too many people there who shouldn't have been there. Dustin, I really like how they handled Dustin's character. It was really sad, but powerful? It doesn't feel like the right word, but in past seasons, Dustin was always kind of more hopeful and maybe even naive, and now he's just very cynical and bitter, and he's pushing his friends away. And it's really sad, and it shows how grief affects people, but it also feels like a metaphor for growing up in general. And I liked that he was grouped with Nancy, Jonathan, and Steve, because it kind of shows that, he's not a kid anymore. Steve's not babysitting him anymore. He's, an adult. And then Nancy, Jonathan, and Steve, I'm going to talk about them together. for obvious reasons. I love that they gave Nancy her flowers. I'm gonna clap. Never in a million years did I think she'd be the one to lure the Mind Flayer at the end, because you would expect the guys to be like, no, you can't, I'll do it, because, you know, they're guys. Like, that's just how it goes most of the time. My cat is trying to escape. I was also very pleased that Nancy didn't end up with Jonathan or Steve. When they showed Jonathan getting the ring, I was like, ugh, they are gonna fight, and then they're gonna go through some trauma and make up and get married at the end. And I was so glad that that's not what happened. I did kind of expect her to end up with Steve, at least after the time skip, maybe. There's something unsatisfying about the lack of ships that ended up together, but it's a lot more realistic, and I appreciate that they left the characters' futures kind of open-ended. Like, we kind of know what they're doing, but it's also like, they didn't just get married and have kids, which is how most time skips go. I freed my cat, and now he's trying to get back in, so if you can hear him scratching. Sorry, Kali, what a waste of a character. You brought her back just to kill her. Like, please do not piss me off. Her and Elle should have ended up escaping together, but we'll get to that. Hopper, it's hard for me to separate the art from the artist, and I really despise David Harbour. So this whole season I was like, I don't even care if you die, sir. His character was pretty much what you'd expect, trying to protect Elle. I do appreciate that he was able to accept her death and move on with Joyce. I'm glad we let him have some peace. And I might have missed somebody, but the last person to talk about, I think, is Elle. And I'm gonna hold off on her because now I'm just gonna talk about the finale, which will naturally transition into me talking about Elle's ending. So the finale, I really loved it. Like, I had a great time watching it, but naturally we can't ignore the plot holes happening, or inconsistencies, if you don't want to call them plot holes. I will say I do give it a lot of grace because it was never gonna be perfect, but there are some very glaring issues. Let me just start talking about it. I like how they split up the characters for the final fight. Erica and Mr. Clark were on the sidelines, which was appropriate. Also Vicky and Max. I wish Max could have been in the final fight, but she's in a wheelchair. Unfortunately, it just wasn't gonna happen. It could have happened if we had Max wake up at the beginning of the season, physically recover, and then she could have been ready for the final battle. But no, we had to do Camazot's nonsense. It's fine. I don't even care. And then Murray, Hopper, Eleven, and Kali are a group, and they go to the lab, and then Murray kind of gets split off from them, which felt appropriate. I loved them having to climb the radio tower. Like, what a perfect build-up to the final battle. The world, like, crashing down on the tower. That was, like, cinema. I clap for that. I kind of expected someone to die there. I expected two main characters to die at two separate points. So when Steve fell, I was like, oh, is it time? But then it wasn't. I do think the other world is visually less interesting than the Upside Down. I thought they were gonna meet in the middle. I know we had to defeat the Mind Flayer, which was up there, but couldn't Vecna have come down? I don't know. It should have happened in the Upside Down. That's my personal thoughts. I don't know if I'm going in chronological order, but the scene of Henry gaining his powers was so unnecessary. They wanted to explain how they got his abilities, but this just raises more questions than answers. Where did they find the magic stuff? Is it exotic matter? Is that what we're calling it? And why did the scientist guy have it? Why did he tell him to resist it? That implies someone else had absorbed the power before Henry, because how else would he know to be, like, resist it? Like, what is it? How do you know what that is? See how it just makes things more confusing? They might have been better off not explaining Henry's powers at all. Because it's like they gave us an answer, but it's not really an answer. It's just like here's a thing, and that's it. Oh, and Will sees Henry's memory of this and then tries to convince him to be good? That was quite strange because for a minute there I was like, is Henry gonna join them and sacrifice himself? But no, it literally led to nothing. So what was that? What was that? Everyone's like, I felt so bad for him in that scene, and I'm like, are we quite sure? I did not feel bad. I kind of got ahead of myself because there was also the fight scene with Elle, Hop, and Collie in the military. The military as an enemy was handled so badly. Dr. K, such an underwhelming villain. I forgot to even mention her, but I have nothing to say about her anyways. And then there was the other military guy who I don't even know. Does he even have a name? He must, because he was like the main guy. He was just thrown in for the drama, and it's interesting to me that the military guy from season 4, who happened to be a black man, got injured and did nothing all season, and they made this random white man the big military villain. Maybe I'm the friend that's too woke. I just don't understand. It's like we have a military guy who has a vendetta against Elle for killing his men and has been hunting her since season 4, and it's like, we're gonna give you guys a new military guy with the exact same motivations and who you will never learn anything about. It's like new character for the sake of having a new character, because we don't know anything about him. Like, we didn't even need him. I mean, there was the scene where they give him intel, but that could have been a random side character. They could have just murdered him after that. They didn't need to make him a main villain, and it really makes no sense to me. But anyways, then Collie effing dies. And I was so sure. First of all, I was sure they were going to have a cliche scene where everyone dies, and then it was Collie using her mind powers on Vecna. That might have been better than what we got. At least Collie would have done something. When she got shot, I also thought that was a fake out. I was like, she is faking her death so that way when Henry looks into Eleven's mind, he'll think she died, and he'll be like, I don't have to worry about her tricking me. And then she would trick him, and it would be awesome. But no, that didn't happen either. They just killed her off for no reason. It's like you have a character with the most unique abilities in the show, and you don't do anything with her. Like, you just didn't do anything with her. Her character is the one I'm most upset about, and everyone was hating on her. For what? What did she do, really, except suffer? Alright, the final battle with Vecna and the Mind Flayer. It wasn't perfect by any means, but it made me feel so alive. I won't even lie. I gotta complain. I know I just complained about Collie, but I'm unreasonably upset about Elle's outfit in the final stretch. Imagine, if you can, me watching the second episode of season 5, in which Elle is wearing that weird outfit with the cropped hoodie and the shorts over the leggings. It's kind of a vibe, but it's not like final outfit material. When she went into the Upside Down in the second episode, I was like, oh my god, is this the final outfit she's gonna fight Vecna in? There's no way. And now here I am wishing that was the outfit she had fought Vecna in. She looked ridiculous in all of the final scenes. They should have had her change out of the wetsuit at some point. I know she was like going in a tub, so it made sense. I don't care. They should have had her hair down. That slicked back hair, that was the biggest mistake. The biggest styling mistake I think I've ever seen. I'm like, let her have her hair down. Imagine her standing in the portal at the end with her hair blowing in the wind, because you know how like the Upside Down, like the wind was rushing by as everything exploded. Imagine how beautiful that would have looked, but instead we have her like slicked back hair, like, and there's been so many memes about it, and it's not even her fault. People are talking about, I don't even want to talk about that. You know, Millie Bobby Brown. People are being so mean to her, and I'm like, y'all, it wouldn't have been that bad if they hadn't styled her the way they did. She just looked bad, and it's a shame. I don't know how no one stepped in and said anything. Anyways, rant over. The actual fight, I'd say, was pretty good. We have to overlook some issues, like how did they scale the cliffs so quickly? When Nancy was luring the Mind Flayer, that don't make sense. It don't really make sense that no one was killed by the Mind Flayer. And people are like, why do you want the characters to die? And it's like, I don't, but I thought this show was willing to kill off main characters, and I don't count Kali as a main character, and there's a chance Elle's alive, so I also don't really count her. So it was like, oh, like, everyone survived this it doesn't really make sense, but, you know, glad everyone's alive, I guess. See how I swear it's good and that I enjoyed it, and then I just point out infinite problems I had with it? It's what I do. But something I did enjoy, finally, was Joyce axing Vecna's head off. I'm glad they gave her that moment. And that, yeah, I take back every bad thing I said just for that scene. See, I thought when I heard the clock chimes going as she was axing his head, and I was like, oh, she's gonna hit him 12 times because a clock strikes 12. And then I rewatched and I counted, and she only hits him 11 times. Genius, because 11 killed Vecna. And because 11 comes before 12, so his plan didn't come to fruition. Someone was cooking in the writing room for that one moment. And then they go back to Hawkins. How did all those kids climb down that radio tower? It's none of my business. But people have pointed out how insane it was for them to go back through the main gate knowing the military would be there. It really doesn't make any sense. There's no way to explain this. It's like they all shut their brains off is the only explanation. They could have at least made up a reason why they had to go to that gate. Like, maybe it was the closest one, and since they were blowing up the Upside Down, maybe it's the only one they could reach in time. Like, just make up a reason, writers, because this just don't make any sense. And then when they did go through, it's like they were surprised there were military people at the military base. Maybe they thought they'd be in Dr. K's lab in the Upside Down? Some kind of explanation was needed for that, because otherwise it makes Elle's death seem avoidable if they had gone through a different gate. But with that all being said, the Purple Rain scene was really good, aside from Elle looking absolutely ridiculous, but we can't do anything about that. But yeah, the editing of it, unfortunately, when they were all yelling, Elle, no! All I could think about was Kal-El, no. With, you know, Gal Gadot. Bars, you know what I'm talking about. But the way it was edited was really, really satisfying. The way the music, I think it started skipping at the end. But yeah, the cuts from the military people holding back everybody, and then Elle standing in the gate as, like, the Upside Down's exploding and all the particles are whooshing. Yeah, it's just cinema. We clap. And then comes the epilogue. I, for one, was extremely happy to see the epilogue was almost an hour long. I hate when shows end with a short 5-minute epilogue to wrap everything up. It makes the characters' lives seem so one-dimensional. It's always like they're married and have kids and lived happily ever after. I'm glad each character was a bit more fleshed out. We kind of know where they're headed, but not exactly where they're gonna end up. It don't make sense that the military just let them all go after what they've seen and done, but I guess we just gotta let that go with all the other problems in this episode. People are questioning how Max managed to graduate. I don't even really care about that. How did Dustin become valedictorian? I know it has to do with grades, but I also thought it was kind of based on, like, public image and what your teachers and peers think of you. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't know. And I want his publicist, because how did he manage to change everyone's opinion about Hellfire and D&D in a year and a half? That might be the most unrealistic part of this episode, because people do not change their beliefs that easily. His graduation speech, I do think it was kind of fumbled. It felt very disconnected from the show. They tried to make it a commentary on clique culture. It just wasn't very impactful, and I guess it acted as closure for Dustin's arc as opposed to closure for the whole show. But I thought it was going to be a really powerful moment, and then it just kind of fell flat, and then he had the, like, him ripping off his, what is it called? Graduation robe? cloak. It felt like it was for a different show or a different movie. It felt very out of place. I thought the speech was going to be something that could be understood by the general public but had a deeper meaning for the characters and viewers. You know what I mean? It just didn't move me the way I hoped it would, but I guess we were saving that for Mike. And then Nancy, Steve, Robin, and Jonathan. Like I said earlier, I'm glad Nancy didn't end up with either of them. And then we find out she dropped out of Emerson after all the drama it caused. But that's how life goes sometimes. I like how the characters are able to make choices. It's not just one linear path. I don't understand why Vicky was left out of the older kids group at the end. She was kind of mentioned in passing by Robin as an overbearing partner, and it's not clear if they're together or not. And I know she's not part of the OG group, but she's in her circle now. Again, why bring her into the squad for barely a season just to leave her out at the end? So dumb. And Hopper and Joyce finally went to Enzo's. Well, it's implied they went a few times, but you get what I mean. It was nice to see Hopper be able to move on. I guess we can assume Joyce was there for him and helped him through it, and he managed to find closure one way or the other, and now him and Joyce are gonna go live on a beach or near a beach. So happy for them. And then that final scene in Mike's basement, it's Wicked all over again. I know most of it was bad, but the final scene makes me forget how bad everything else was. The D&D game was a bit cringe, not because they're playing D&D, but it was just so on the nose. They lose the game, and then they remember they can summon the mage, and against all odds, they win. Let the kids have fun. I'm being too harsh. And then the entire closing monologue delivered so beautifully. I don't like a lot of Mike's acting. The final monologue was Oscar worthy, or what's the one for TV shows? Tonys. But I'm clapping anyways. Give him awards. We see that Lucas and Max finally went to the movies. I will say they should have shown Dustin on a road trip to visit Susie in his epilogue montage thing. The way they never even mentioned Susie this season was messed up. Like, you couldn't have even said they broke up or something. I don't think they did. That's really messed up to me. But what can we do? Will, I think he went to New York in his epilogue. Yeah. Well, he got a boyfriend, so, you know, happy that happened for you. I don't even care. And then Mike tells his theory about Elle. And he did kind of bait them, because the way he was telling it was like, oh, this happened. I thought he was going to say, Elle told me this when they were in the, like, black space. Whatever. I don't know what it's called. And everyone's saying I believe at the end. Also kind of cringe, but it was kind of perfect. So I won't hate. And then, when they put their binders up on the shelf, stop. That's one of the scenes. It's like we've been waiting for the show to end, and it's kind of been dragging because of the delays in production. But now you get to this scene, and it's like, no, like, stop. Like, they're putting the binders up, and you're like, stop. I don't want it to end. Like, slow down. I'm not ready. It's like you think you're ready to let it go, and then suddenly you're not. That's how that shot makes me feel. And then Holly's friends take over the D&D table. Oh, and the way Mike stares at them from the stairs. Again, give him awards for this. The look of jealousy and longing on his face for when they were kids and, you know, they didn't know what they had. Again, metaphor for growing up. And then it turns into this bittersweet smile. Yeah, it's really up. But it really moved me. I can't even lie. It kind of ends where it began, with in the basement. I guess it began in the woods when Will got kidnapped. But you know what I mean, okay? Let me cook. And then they gave us a banging end credit scene. Thank you, because they never do fun end credit scenes anymore. Yeah, I think it's hard to say right now how good the season actually was. I think we're all being overly critical of it. And my theory is that as time passes, people will look back and be like, this was actually an okay ending to this series. Not anything exceptional, but a good conclusion overall. And you know how you kind of know it's a good ending because people are arguing tooth and nail about whether or not Elle is alive. It's really baffling to me because it's so intentionally open-ended. The show intentionally makes it unclear if she's dead or alive or not, but people are so determined to find clues and evidence one way or the other, and it's like, we'll never know. It's up to your own interpretation. But if you ask me, if anyone cares what I think, some part of me is always gonna lean towards she's alive and out there somewhere. But based on how it went down, I think it makes more sense for her to have died. But again, some part of me is always gonna be like, she's out there. People are saying Eleven's sacrifice plays into this cliche about these powerful heroines who always end up sacrificing themselves or losing their powers at the end of the story, and I'm like, you're kind of right. It's easy to be like, she deserved better, and of course I think she deserved a happy ending, but the government was always going to be coming after her, so the only options were her dying, faking her death, or losing her powers, and if she lost her powers, people would be upset about that too. Yeah, I think I'm okay with how her story ended, because it was always going to go that way if we're going to give it a realistic ending, as realistic as we can be under the circumstances. So yeah, I'm gonna believe she ended up somewhere in a nice little village, living a peaceful little life. That's what my heart tells me. I saw people saying they're gonna do a reboot in 10 years where they're all adults and Elle comes back. Unfortunately, I can see that happening. It wouldn't be good, but I do see a reboot or a spin-off in the future, and I know I'll watch it if it happens, so who's the fool? So yeah, those are my thoughts about the Stranger Things finale. You can tell me your thoughts down below. Perhaps people have a lot to say about it, so please share with me. But anyways, thank you for watching, and bye!